You know, of all the stories, I remember going out, and I didn't do hunting, and I was never a good fisherman, as you know. But I admired the fact that you could make a story about fishing out of nothing. And I would be your backup as far as nothing happening.
Oh, we beat you up something fierce, and we put it on the air too.
Yeah,
Mike, how's it fishing? Oh.
But how did that play out? How many stories?
You know, well, Pennsylvania Outdoor Life's been on the air as long as I'm at 16. So you figure 43 years, 42 years. We almost always had a brand new show. Sometimes we were kicked out at Christmas or a NASCAR race. So even if you go around 49 shows a year, 50 shows a year, that's over 2,000 shows. Now, each one of the shows had almost 2, sometimes 3, but let's go with 2 stories. That's 4,000 stories in 43 years. That's a lot, and we never really reran anything. We may rerun a story here or there in the middle of the summer because we're going on vacation, but it was almost always fresh.
Yeah.
And you know, and you would supply the outdoor painters or the outdoor artists or whatever. You'd take somebody, go on a hike and tell a story about where you were. But we, you know, it was Larry Lavelle, then Doug Engel, and then Brian. We were in the duck blinds. We were on the rivers at daybreak fishing. We were in the woods a half hour before daybreak turkey hunting. I never looked at it as work. I would do that on a day off anyhow. I was raised in that kind of family.
Might as well get paid for it.
And I always said, I don't complain to anybody because I get paid to hunt and fish.
That's it. Do you have any, I always bring this up, this kind of story. Do you have a favorite one from all those years past?
I can honestly tell you that I like tons of them. I loved being groundbreaking, right? Mm-hmm. Like we were there when they put radio collars on pheasants to try to bring back the pheasant population. We were there when they dropped nets on deer to put radio collars on them to follow their how do they disperse and you know all that kind of stuff. So I can honestly tell you that in a collection of stories, besides the ones where we sat and laughed for 5 hours wherever we were, the stories I really enjoyed were all the wildlife, the live stories. Despite the hunting and the fishing where we harvested and killed animals and fish, I really liked working with live animals. Mm-hmm. You know, I had an opportunity to release some back to the wild. Animal rehabilitators like Sue Gallagher. I mean, she would take care of all these critters and then call us and say, we're going to go release some. Those are the kind of stories I really love doing.
Yeah. They were, in a way, more than in a way, but you guys were promoting good use of the woods.
Yeah, so conservation is a lot different than just going out and killing an animal, right? There has to be enough protection of these, protection of that, management of this, so that it all lives together and works well together. So we were able to say, we need to go out and harvest some deer and raccoons by trapping and this and that, and in the meantime, we as conservationists have a heart. When an animal got injured or orphaned and it wasn't a hunting season or whatever, we would bring that animal to a rehabilitation center and people would see it go back into the wild.
Yeah.
And that's just an amazing thing to be able to share with our audience. And you did several stories with Susan Gallagher and everybody down the years.
Yeah.
Stick around. Mike and Jake will be right back. Welcome back. Here again is Mike and Jake.
I can honestly tell you, Mike, that of all the people that I had an opportunity to work with, and of all the guides that I fished with and hunted with, and even all the naturalists, when you and I got together and we were doing, whether you were catching small fish or whatever, we gave each other enough of a hard time on the air that people loved it.
Pull! Yeah, right.
They actually loved it.
Yes, it was so much fun. I gotta say that much.
Cookbooks. We put out 3 cookbooks,
Yeah.
right?
The other thing I forgot about, the expos.
Yes.
The success of that came out of the blue.
Yeah.
I remember it, standing in line with Stan,
Yep.
and there were hundreds of people in line already.
Yeah. And I was only the producer of the show for about 8 months when the general manager called me in and said, "Hey, what do you think about an expo?"
Wow.
You guys were beat because I wasn't on the air yet. You kept rocking and rolling all day, talking to people, signing autographs. It was amazing.
That's what made us.
Right?
You know?
And then later on, when we started doing the Ames department store gig, right, with the doors opening and the people coming in like by the thousands and thousands. So yeah, they were all good runs, and I always said that people like yourself and myself and you know, Nolan Johannes and all the old timers instantly got the importance of a handshake. Mm-hmm. You know, we got the importance of, you know, politicians hold the babies. Well, we were getting kids, and people want a picture because of who you are and your family values and everything. So I look back at those a lot of work, but I look back at those very fondly. Very
They were
fondly.
fun. They were fun.
Now, what about one of my favorite stories, and it's going to be so old I don't think we'll ever find it. You were going on a gig where you were visiting all these state parks in an RV. And you met up with myself and Doug Engel at Raystown Lake. And we fished for 2 days, you and me. And we did not catch a fish. We were out with the guide who caught the biggest striped bass. You pulled out of that to go to a different state park, drove by us. We have a shot of you driving it, and drove by us. And as soon as you were out of sight, I caught a fish. And we caught fish all day long. You cursed that lake something fierce. And there was no cell phones back then, so I had to wait to talk to you like later on. Oh my God, we laughed and laughed and laughed.
Yeah, I remember that. You could see the boat out there from where we were.
We were waving. And somebody said, "Thank God he's gone. He's the curse." That was a good one. That was a good time.
Yep. Hey, if the show works because of it,
Yeah.
why not?
Well, that's right.
Why not?
That's right. God rest his soul, Larry Lavelle was the first producer that I worked with. And he was the first cameraman producer, and I was just a producer at the time. And I'll never forget it. I lined up a fishing trip on the Pulaski River. We got in the car, and we drove to Pulaski, New York, right to the Salmon River, and we laughed all the time. Every minute. Larry knew nothing about fishing. We just laughed and laughed and laughed. And the best line was, we had to get dressed in hip boots or neoprene waders. He couldn't get them on. He finally got them on. It was like skin on bologna, he was telling me. He came out of the room and jumped and went, "Neoprene man!" And from that moment on, we're fishing along the creek and he's going, "Neoprene man." Oh, we always laughed, Mike.
Yeah.
Always laughed.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss that, but we can still get together for coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
But just getting on the road with good people and having a good time.
I think that was the whole key to it. You know, just speaking from my viewpoint, we were relaxed. We didn't take it out on anybody. You could have a terrible day coming in.
Yep.
The guy was making lures. All right, how do you make a lure?
Right.
And that was it.
Yeah.
My mind went to lure. And
Yep.
so did yours, went to fishing.
Yeah.
And
We
were lucky.
caught a lot of trout together, you and I. We've caught a lot of fish together, and it was a good run. It really was a great run. I have nothing but fond memories of working, especially with you and with Ken and with Stan, and you know, God rest Stan's soul. But yeah, we met some good people along the way, buddy. We really did.
Yep.